Have you ever wondered what the differences are between Asics' 3 top-end tennis shoes? Well, that's the project we're taking on in this video. Hey everybody, it's Luca from Rackets Runners. So we released our Solution Speed FF3 review a couple of weeks ago, and in it I mentioned we might do a full Asics lineup comparison video, and people seemed pretty interested in that, so here it is. Asics is obviously a giant in the tennis shoe world, and they're most well known for their fantastic support and durability, but all three of their shoes are also cutting edge right now, and they all offer unique playability. Now, of course, before we get into this comparison, I do want to remind you that any of the shoes we talk about here you can check out on our website, racketsandrunners.ca. And please remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comment section what you want me to cover next. So, Asics has 3 top-end shoes, the super popular Gel Resolution, the brand new Solution Speed, and of course, Novak's Court FF3. Sad loss last night for Novak fans, by the way. I'm sorry. I'm also not getting into the prediction game anytime soon. Now, there are 3 pretty different shoes, with 2 of them much more similar than the other, and that's a theme you're going to sense during this review. There is one thing I need to talk about straight away because it's been bugging me for years, and now that the Solution Speed has changed so much, it's even more apparent, and that's the whole marketing behind the Court FF3. When it first came out, this was kind of touted as a hybrid shoe, meaning its playability was supposed to be somewhere between a Gel Resolution and Solution Speed. That's just not the case. We'll get into more specifics here in a second, but even just looking at these 3 shoes, you can tell which is the most substantial. First it's the Court FF, then it's the Resolution, and then it's the Solution Speed. If anything, that in-between shoe is kind of the role these newer Gel Resolutions have taken, and by the way, the weight stats back me up on this. All in a size 9.5 US, the Court FF is by far the heaviest, weighing 416 grams, then it's the Resolution weighing 386, and then it's a quite frankly ridiculous 329 grams for the Solution Speed. Anyways, sorry, that's just a little pet peeve of mine. If you take nothing else from this review, that's the most important thing. Solution Speed here, Court FF here, and Gel Resolution somewhere in between, a little closer to here. But anyways, let's get into more specifics. So first of all 3 of these shoes have a pretty similar fit, especially in the toe box, and the best way I can describe it is by saying they're all very Asics-y. It's not to say that they're narrow, but they are a little slimmer around the 5th metatarsal area, and that's especially true on the Gel Resolution, where I actually recommend going for a wide, so 2E for men and D for women, if you do have a wide foot. It's just a little low volume on that side, and when you combine that with all the rubber, the upper won't give very much, so best to err on the side of caution there. The Solution Speed is similarly narrow right here, but it doesn't have all that rubber, so it's way more adaptable to wider foot types. I didn't have any issues with width on this one, and that's because after just a little bit of break-in, that tighter fit turned into this really nice snug wrap around my foot without any unwanted pressure. Now, the Court FF is definitely the widest of the 3 and has the most ergonomic shape, where it does get a little bit wider in the toe box to accommodate the fact that a lot of people's foot gets wider right there. Unless you have obscenely wide feet, I don't think width will be an issue, but just keep in mind the rubber here is similar to what it is on the Resi, maybe even a little sturdier, so it definitely won't get any roomier after break-in. Now, in terms of width, most shoes have a wider toe box that kind of compresses into a narrower midfoot, but these shoes keep a similar width throughout. Ironically, that leads to a pretty wide midfoot where you don't really feel the upper hugging at your arch, but what that does give you is a fantastic platform to fit an orthotic into. The Court FF and Resolution are especially good shoes for any type of footbed, just because that extra space gives you so much room to play around within there. The Solution Speed is a little narrower right here, but I don't think there would be any issue fitting an orthotic in here either. Now, one very important caveat with the fit in the midfoot is that, of course, the Court FF has that one-piece tongue construction. Makes you feel very locked in for sure, but that compression could be a little too much for people with really tall feet. My navicular does come up pretty high, and I always need about a day or 2 to really break in my Court FFs, and even then, sometimes they compress a little bit too much, but this neoprene material has gotten more comfortable on the 3. The heel area is where the 3 shoes are the most different in terms of fit. Starting with the Gel Resolution, honestly, it hasn't changed much over the last 15 years. It's pretty roomy and fairly low cut. The Solution Speed hugs you a little tighter than the Resi, but nothing crazy. The Court FF is where you'll really have to get used to just how much compression there is back there. It makes for a super locked-in sensation because of how much you feel the heel counter pushing inward, but yeah, that combined with the tongue, it's a shoe that you really feel hugging your foot. It's not that it's uncomfortable, but it's the least instantly comfortable of the 3. The Solution Speed, as you can imagine with so little rubber, has the most natural and comfortable fit. Don't worry if it's a little bit snug at first. After a bit of break-in, it fits like a glove without any uncomfortable pressure. The Resolution is a Resolution. It's comfortable. As long as it fits your foot, you'll love it, especially if it's worked for you in the past. The Solution Speed and Gel Resolution's outsoles have what I would call a natural angle to them. Most tennis shoes angle you in a little bit, but I will say it's less intense than on something like a Vapor Pro. It's made to keep you a little more reactive when you're in that wide ready stance, and it works really well, which is why it's kind of become the industry standard. What's interesting is that the Court FF is almost dead flat. When I threw it on one foot with the Gel Resolution on the other, it was almost a little weird just how flat it was. That makes for a super grounded feel, but like I said, a bit of angle inward does feel more natural most of the time, probably because I've gotten so used to it, but that is worth pointing out. In terms of the midsoles, the Solution Speeds is much more plush and almost squishy, whereas the Resolution and Court FF have that classic stability shoe firmness to them. If you watched our review of the Solution Speed, you'll know I talked a lot about its really unique rocker, which is uncommon on tennis shoes, but obviously something you'll see on almost every running shoe. You add that to the fact the midsole is softer and bouncier, and you get this very naturally springy sensation where you almost want to be moving and running around the court because the shoes are so efficient at doing just that. Now that's all great, but it does take away from the shoe's stability. You're definitely not going to be as grounded in the Solution Speed as you are in either the Court FF or Gel Resolution, and that's why this shoe won't be for everyone. Moving around on it, you can definitely feel a bit of a wobble, especially because it's on the narrowest platform, but we'll talk about how this can actually help performance in the movement section a little bit later. The other two have way more standard outsoles, so in the world of tennis, that means they're flatter and more rigid. The Court FF has a higher heel to toe drop, which gives you a little more of that on your toes sensation than the Resolution that has a really low heel to toe drop, but that's classic Gel Res right there. Between the two, the Court FF is definitely a little bit firmer, almost unnaturally so, where this is just a really snappy, solid outsole. The Gel Resolution does flex just a little bit more, especially in the toe. That does complement your foot's natural movement a little bit better, which I really appreciate. I tend to prefer a bit of give from my outsole, but there is something to be said about just strapping these pontoons onto your feet and trusting them with your life because they're about as sturdy and stable as it gets. Lockdown and support are determined by how well the upper hugs your foot and how well it holds up when you're moving around in the shoe. Well, as you can imagine, this is again where we've got the Gel Resolution and Court FF here and the Solution Speed over there. For one, all this rubber means that lockdown is fantastic on the Court FF and Resolution, but especially on the Court FF, and honestly, I don't think there's any other shoe that competes with it in that regard. Full rubber wrap, but then there's also the combination of the compression in the heel and the tongue. It's a shoe that once you're in it, you're definitely not moving around, kind of like a ski boot, although not nearly as unpleasant. Support goes hand in hand with lockdown here, again thanks to the rubber and the taller midsole. The cage you're sitting in here is very stiff, so it's super sturdy when you're moving from side to side. The Gel Resolution is very similar for support. The Dynawall sidewall comes up really high on the lateral side, and the heel counter is almost as stiff as the Court FF, so it's another rock solid shoe. It doesn't have the same vacuum-like fit as the Court FF, but it's still excellent for lockdown. The only little bit of movement I feel here is in the heel because it's a little bit shallow and roomy for my taste, but it's pretty much a non-issue. Lockdown and support are a different story on the Solution Speed, but before I explain why they aren't quite as good, I need to emphasize that we're comparing it to two of the best shoes for this in the entire industry. In terms of lockdown, it's actually quite good. This narrower profile does a good job of providing a snug fit, and then this lacing system is pretty good at cinching the upper down to your foot. Support is where it does suffer compared to the other two. Because there's so little rubber and the fact that the outsole is narrower and squishier, it doesn't have that same rigidity, which can lead to some rollover when you're pushing it really hard laterally. This can become a slight problem for players who really count on their shoes to hold up, especially if their movement gets sloppy. Your movement has to be really precise and you have to use proper technique because these shoes won't bail you out. Now you might be thinking, okay, what's the point of the Solution Speed then? Isn't the whole point of a tennis shoe to be as supportive as possible? Well, yes, support is important, but the sacrifice in support means it can absolutely excel in another category. Movement encompasses a number of different things. Of course, lateral movement is one of them, and because the Court FF and Resolution are so supportive, they beat out the Solution Speed in that regard. But because of the running shoe-esque outsole, because the upper is more flexible, and of course, because they're able to make it so light with less rubber and less structure, it's a shoe that moves unlike anything else I've ever tried. The feeling of weightlessness is completely unique. Putting on a Court FF and a Solution Speed side by side, I'm not kidding when I say that this shoe feels like a brick and the Solution Speed feels like nothing. You gain a flutteriness to your footwork, which makes it feel like you can move with more precision and agility, and it's a sensation that you don't know you want until you've tried it and gone back to something heavier. Also, because this shoe is almost made for running, it makes you want to move around the court. Sometimes in a heavier shoe, I get a little bit lethargic, especially when it comes to getting quickly up to the net. Not in these. Even the fact that the outsole is narrower and squishier kind of pushes you to not stay planted in one position. You're never fully grounded here, so you kind of need to move to get the best out of the shoe, and you move a lot in modern tennis. It's a really cool sensation. Again, it won't be for everyone, and I get that, but if any of what I'm saying sounds like something you might like, I'd definitely give these a shot. Now, I do just want to say, compared to the solution speed, the Court FF and resolution feel like traditional bricky shoes, but they are absolutely nothing like what we were getting from stability shoes 10 years ago. Those were firm, unyielding, and super heavy, and they didn't have a lot of tech complementing modern movement. These certainly do. The flight foam provides a nice airy sensation, and the gel pocket does a similar thing on the gel resolution, and this twist truss shank, which is a really hard thing to say, by the way. But anyway, it gives a nice blend of torsional stability and snappy energy return. The Dynawall sidewall is one of the coolest pieces of tech on any shoe. You feel it hold up really well on lateral cuts, but then it pushes back in the other direction with way more energy than you would expect. So yeah, these shoes don't move anything like the solution speed, but they're far from being the unmovable bricks of yesteryear. Honestly, these are some of the most technologically impressive shoes I've tried. Just touching on sliding, the gel resolution is the king of sliding, no question about that. The Court FF is a close second, and the solution speed is also great. Same rubber compound, it's just not as sturdy, so you do need to be a little more careful. That said, every Asics shoe is insane at sliding, very consistent. You can slide very easily and for very long. They've figured it out over there. This review is getting really long, but I do just want to briefly touch on who each of these shoes is for, and I think you may have figured it out during this review, but the gel resolution and Court FF are pretty interchangeable. Oops, that's not the gel resolution. I think the Court FF is a more impressive shoe because of how phenomenal the lockdown and support and stability are, but the gel resolution is right up there with that impressive factor. It's really a testament to if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and all they've been doing with this over the past 9 generations is refining a bestseller into an even better shoe pretty much every time. It's a little more classic tennis shoe than the Court FF, but both of these are made for you players looking for the maximum amount of support and stability, and if you want a little bit of modern playability as well, especially that great sliding. The solution speed also has that impressive factor, but in a totally different way. If you think you want something that complements scrambling around the court and also has that weightless sensation, these are about as good as it gets. Also, just touching on durability, there's a pretty clear tier. The Court FF is the most durable, and it's also probably the most durable shoe on the market right now. The resolution is a close second, but the rubber did get a little bit softer for this generation, so it's less durable than the Court FF and than the last gel resolution. And then you've got the solution speed, which, as you can imagine, is the least durable of the 3 by far, just because it has so much less rubber than the other 2. These are 3 fantastic shoes, though. I think the gel resolution is probably still the best because it's a style that works so well for so many people. But from a technological point of view, I think the Court FF kind of represents, at least to me, what I consider the holy grail of what's possible in terms of tennis shoe performance. Also, quick shout out to the Gel Challenger. It's one of the best value shoes on the market right now because it gives you 85% of what you'll get from the playability of a gel resolution, just in a less expensive package. With that said, though, that is going to be the end of this review. It's been way too long. Thank you so much for watching, and remember that if you do want to try on any of these shoes, you can come visit us in store, or you can check them out online at racketsandrunners.ca.